Welcome to another Lighting Bot interview. I'm delighted to have Maxime join today, and he has worked on Cyberpunk 2077, among other projects. So we'll have him join today and talk a little bit. During this interview, we'll take some questions. If you have any, that will be great too. So let us welcome Maxime into the interview. Hey, Maxime.
Hey guys. Hey Amit, thanks for having me.
No problem. So who is Maxime? Tell us.
Who am I? I'm a lighting artist at CDPR currently. I started working in the industry with CDPR actually about 2.5 years ago, right after my studies at DAE in Belgium. And yeah, I love lighting, I love photography, I love video games. And yeah, any other questions, feel free to ask.
Cool. So what's your favorite video game?
I think Kerbal Space Program and Red Dead Redemption 2. Like,
Wow.
very different games, but I love them both a lot.
Right. So Kerbal Space Program obviously doesn't have very good lighting compared to Red Dead Redemption 2, right?
No.
What do you think about the lighting in Red Dead Redemption 2? Was that any good for you?
I think it looked amazing. There's like, you can see a few technical issues here and there, but overall, like, the natural lighting in that game is mind-blowing. It feels really cool.
I think I was at Ubisoft at the time, so a couple of people were playing during the break at Ubisoft in France, and we had 1 hour break when we were in France. So people would play during the lunch break, and they would be like, "Look at the lighting! It's so awesome! It's so good!" And they just talk about it. So it was kind of fun to listen to it. I have yet to play it though. I have it on Epic Stores actually, but we'll see how that goes. Unfortunately, I also yet to play Cyberpunk 2077, so that's also on my list. But lighting artists were busy always lighting and doing stuff, right? So that's cool. So as a lighting artist, let's go through a little bit explaining your role as a lighting artist, assuming no one doesn't know what a lighting artist is, but it's also different from studio to studio, I've realized. So how would you explain your role as a lighting artist at a CD Projekt Red?
We basically come in and we set the mood, and also we help gameplay to achieve their goals, because sometimes for some levels we need to apply some lighting techniques in order to facilitate the gameplay aspect. But mostly in Cyberpunk, it's a lot of mood and vibes and that kind of stuff. So most of the work we do is based around that, creating a cool cyberpunk feel. And with all the neon lights, it's a lot of fun to play around with. Like, there's so many colors and things like that. But yeah, that's basically what we do.
That's cool. I'll show some of the pieces for the people who are watching. These are some of the work that he has done. We might talk a little bit about some of them, maybe not in detail, but at least the process of them, just so you guys can have a general idea of, compare it with your personal work, compare with wherever you work, if you're also lighting artist by any chance. Phone call that I don't want. So that's your idea of a lighting artist where you work. So if you were to break down your average day at work, how would that be at the CD Projekt Red?
I think it depends on the the development part in which we're in. But like now, most of the time, we're just trying to improve the game. There's still a lot of things that we didn't have much time for during the development process. So we're mostly improving. We're working on some other stuff, talking with level design, concept artists, and yeah, it's like doing lighting. Going into locations, setting up the technical aspect of it, like reflection probes, things like that. Setting up a draft lighting pass, playing it, talking to people for feedback. Yeah, that's basically it actually.
So, for example, this area here, how long did it take you to light this specific area, for example?
So I was part of the open world lighting team towards the end of the production cycle, and we were basically going through so we had districts assigned to us. So I had like a handful of districts that I was lighting, and together with the environment team, so we were placing street lamps. And the thing is, like, the environment team would do a draft pass of this, and we would then go in and tweak it, and also set up like the actual spotlights in the street lamps. And that for that parking lot, that's all manually placed. I went in there, placed them manually, adjusted the intensities and everything. And so in that location didn't take that much time because there's a lot of stuff to light in Night City, so we cannot afford to spend that much, like more than a few hours or something on a location like that would be too much. So in that regard, it's pretty quick, and also the setup for this is very simple, because if we need to do iterations on it, it's easier to just tweak one light and see the effect instead of having to tweak specular. Oh, maybe a fog light or maybe something else. So for most of our setups, we try to keep it as simple as possible. And in
Okay.
most cases, if you have an engine that has physically accurate lighting, having one light that is accurate on all on all aspects looks better actually.
Hmm. So you have like 1-2 hours to do this kind of area?
There was no set time limit, but because it was the city is quite dense, there's a lot of stuff to light there. You want to move quick. Um, Obviously, like if an area takes longer, you take that time. You want to make sure that it looks good. But the thing is also, like, I never really measured how long I was working on these areas.
Right,
Some
right,
areas felt like I worked on for days, some
right,
maybe half a day.
right.
It really depends on complexity and how important it is also for in the game. Because if there's a location that's like a lot of players are going to be there, it's near a quest location, something, then it requires a bit more work.
Hmm.
So you kind of want to balance it a little bit.
So do you have to worry a lot about technical things in your team, or do you have another person who normally supervises that, or maybe a
We have
technical artist? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a technical lighting artist, and he does a great job at analyzing. If something isn't right, he sees it, and he can talk to the rendering team and yeah, fix the issue. For most of the production cycle, though, we were also helping with this. If we spotted something, we would let people know about it. It was pretty tricky sometimes. Another thing that we had to consider a lot was optimization, because the city is very dense. There is neons everywhere. There's advertisements, street lamps, cars, a lot of different light sources. So light radius, light overdraw was a huge thing. Also shadow count was also a big challenge. So those are the things. Like in a parking lot like that, no problem because you only have a few spotlights. But once you get into the city center, like here for example, it starts to become a bit more complex. You have to really pay attention to how the performance is.
So when you have an area like this one with the statue and everything, do you have to worry a lot about the range of the light? You said, and you said also the shadow casting. Is there a rule where you work that you can only have X amount of shadow casting within a radius, or is it up to you to kind of figure that out for each area?
We have in our engine a set amount of guidelines, basically. Like, okay, so you can have this many shadows streamed in, and also triangle count for the shadows is important, because you could have, let's say, 3 shadows, but if there's no heavy meshes, it will be much lighter than, let's say, 1 shadow on a really heavy and dense mesh. So that's also something to take into account. But we have debug filters for that, like in Unreal Engine. You can see the overlap, you can see how dense meshes are, and stuff like that. So that really helps. In regards to radius, it depends on the location and where the light is shining. If it's going upwards, like in the statue, you can go pretty far because there's no mesh that's gonna hit it above the statue. So you can have a nice gradient going up, and there's not gonna be much overdraw because there's nothing behind that anyway.
Right. Okay. Cool. How about this one then? You have this one as well, and not a lot of local lights going on, except of course the two 1 second spot.
Yeah.
Do you is that the focus here is obviously mood? more
Yeah, totally.
than amount of lights, right? So how do you go about when you have these lighting pieces that you need to do? Is there normally a concept art given, or do you have to do your own research, look for references from movies? Do you have any say on it? You know, how's the process when you do any work?
We're quite lucky, like in our team, that we have concept artists and we have concept art that we can rely on. But we're lucky that we can actually look for our own references and we're allowed to bring our own ideas to the table if it fits within the ideas of the project. And so, references can be anything, stuff on Google Images or, screenshots from movies. As long as it, you know, kind of explains the idea we're going for, it's fine. And then we discuss it in the team with our art director, and if it gets approved, we can, try it, apply it in the engine. If it looks great, well, let's go for it. And another thing I realized as a lighting artist now is that sometimes, it's really important to know when not to light something instead of like, because it's easy to overdo stuff. And sometimes the simple light setups, they work really well. Like in that shot, there's like one light for this blue one, and then maybe two. I don't quite remember, but I think it was two. Capsule lights for those neons, or maybe just one. So it's like really bare bones, very stripped down. There's no like fake lights going on or anything, and it works. In some scenes, we use fake lights because you want to maybe draw the shape here a little bit more, or have some extra specular light. But in general, for the most of the open world, it's very simple, very bare bones. And it really helps for iteration because you don't
Hmm.
have to tweak five lights in order to, change the look of the
Right.
location.
That's cool. So just a reminder for everyone watching, because we have a lot of people coming and going. Feel free to ask questions. If you're watching on Twitch, you're not watching on LinkedIn because I accidentally deleted that stream, or YouTube. You can ask questions, and it should be fine. So obviously, you have done. How long did you work on Cyberpunk 2077?
Since I got at CPR, so it's been like 2.5 years, something like that.
2.5 years. Okay. So it's also interesting to take a few steps back and talk a little bit about your journey into lighting. So you did certain educations, you worked at certain places before you ended up with a project like Cyberpunk 2077, which is obviously a high-profile game. So why don't you share a little bit about your journey so people maybe can get some inspiration or information on that?
Or not make my mistakes.
Yeah, or
No,
not
so
making mistakes. That's
basically,
valid too.
it started in high school. We had an art major for the last 3 years of high school. So back then, I actually wanted to become a concept artist, and I was really into digital painting and Photoshop, and also still photography and stuff like that. And I was watching a lot of Feng Zhu's concept art videos on YouTube, and so that was what I wanted to do is make concept art for movies and maybe video games. And then I found a school in Belgium that was teaching 3D art and also concept art and everything related to games. And because it was not very expensive and in Belgium, like next to Luxembourg where I was living, it was a really good choice to go there. So I went there, I studied there for 4 years. And then I dropped out. I stopped because I was kind of like I did all the courses that I was interested in, and I felt like okay, there's nothing really more here for me. So once I stopped, I sat down for a second, and I was like thinking, okay, what do I really enjoy doing? And I really loved modeling at the time. So from concept art, I went into modeling, 3D modeling. That's also why on my portfolio there's the car and the lightsaber and you know but then, I was thinking, do I really want to model every day, as a job? Because I like it for my own projects, but I'm not sure if I would enjoy doing it, you know, 5 days a week. And then I realized that actually what I also really loved doing was having a 3D model, putting it in some environment, adding lights, and making a render out of it. And I was experimenting a lot with renders when I started school in Belgium because it was just really fun to see your creation coming from some like, flat shaded mesh into something that looked photorealistic. And then I saw like online that more and more lighting artist jobs came available. Like this was like what 3 years ago, and yeah. So then I thought to myself, actually, that would be interesting. So I looked into it, and I started doing these relights in Unreal. There were a lot of scenes available, and Liam Tart's bunk bed scene, everyone did it. Uh, yeah, that was fun. I really had a lot of fun doing that. So I did that for like, I think 4 or 5 months. I was relighting scenes, and then I started applying, and it was really hard because I didn't have any experience, and most juniors will say the same. It's super hard to get into, like step into it, because no one is like, oh, we're not sure because we cannot take the chance on a junior. Um, yeah, so basically I applied to like 20 studios, I think, in total, something like that. And then miracle happened. CDPR reached out to me, because they were really on the hunt for lighting artists at the time. And so we set up, first interview, went great. Art test, also good. And then 2 or 3 months later, I was able to join here. And that's basically how I got on Cyberpunk. A lot of luck, I think. But yeah, like, I also asked for feedback on some like senior lighting artists. Omar Gatika, great guy. He reviewed my portfolio back when I started. Was really helpful. And yeah.
Cool. So basically, you put in the hours, you learn a few things. There's importance in getting feedback from people,
Yeah.
and you had a mentor, I suppose, to get you started.
Not really a mentor, I would say, because I was doing most of it on my own, but I was looking for feedback whenever I felt okay, maybe someone with outside opinion can help me go forward, because it's easy to get stuck uh, on your stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the LinkedIn is apparently working because Gary left us a comment. So because he mentioned it, let's talk a little bit more about it. Because the importance of simple lighting setups and knowing when to not use many lights. You briefly talked about it because you did it specifically for this one, right? It's a very simple light. It looks great, obviously. I mean, considering the power of the simple lighting. Do you have any more thoughts about that? The when to use simple lights or less lights? Because I'm also very active in using as few light as possible to get the desired result. Or when do you think it's too many lights? Or when do you think it's too few lights?
I think the thing is, like, what makes an image look good is contrast and shapes and silhouettes. If you light everything evenly, nothing is standing out. Everything becomes flat. So when I look at the scene, I look at, okay, what do I want to draw here? If there's like a room, for example, and there's something in the middle of the room that's really important, then I'm not going to light the walls around it. I'm just going to like try to focus the light on it. So that's like, and that's really simple setup. You would just need a couple lights, key lights, fill lights, and that's it. Also, like, because I did the same thing in Unreal when I started, was I placed a light where the light source is, but then I would like start forcing other lights, and oh, maybe I need more fill light here, maybe I need more this here, and that way it's really easy to get lost, and it's easy to overdo it. And at some point you get so used to the image that it doesn't look, you don't see the mistakes anymore, because it's easy to make it look not natural anymore. It will just look like why is the specular so strong in this guy? Is he really
It's true.
sweaty or
Yeah.
you know so, and in Cyberpunk we learned this a lot, that a simple light setup usually goes a very far, like, long way, and it's good to keep it simple also for iteration and optimization. Because if like I said earlier, if you have to tweak 5 lights, look, imagine, like you have a green light, and then your art director says, all right, let's make it orange, and then you have to tweak 5 lights, make them orange, and then the values are going to be different because luminance and everything, so you have to tweak it again. And if you only have to do 1 light, you're done in like a few seconds. 5 lights, you have to add a few minutes, and if you have to do that for a lot of locations, that really adds up.
That makes sense. So, how does it work for you when? because that's a true thing when you do lighting and you're looking at one screen. For example, if you're looking at this one for a day or two or whatever, right, for whatever reason, maybe there's some technical issues and you have to do some tweaks and the values are wrong, I don't know. But let's say you do it too long, do you ever take a break even though it's not finished and you would like go to another scene? Because as you said, you do get lighting blind the more you look at one or specific scene, like, because sometimes when I do my work as well, I would have to change sometimes because I've spent too much time tweaking something and I'm starting to not really see the nuances in my lighting because my eyes are adapting to it, right?
Yeah. I was doing the same, like jumping between locations and taking a break sometimes because, yeah, like you said, if you keep doing the same project, like same location for a while, you stop seeing flaws and mistakes. It's like with concept art, a cool trick when you're painting in Photoshop, one way to refresh the image is to flip it. And that way it's a completely new like thing for your brain and you start seeing stuff. And I mean, you can't really do it with lighting. You cannot just flip the scene. But one thing that also helps is turning your scene into black and white. Windows has this cool shortcut that you can apply. So the whole screen turns black and white, and that way you stop focusing on colors. You just focus on values, and this also helps for setting up, the shapes and silhouettes. And that this could also help to refresh the image a little bit because you see it differently. Because when you have colors, it's really easy to get lost in the colors. And red color here, pink there, and it's like, oh, it looks so nice. But then you stop, losing the importance a little bit of the shapes and everything.
Right. That's cool. So do you want to go through some of your ArtStation pieces, which I know is older, but it's probably a good idea to compare it with your Cyberpunk work and maybe also talk about what you would change or improve now, because now you have a different experience,
Sure,
different
sure.
mindset as well. Uh,
All right, which one do you want me to go for? I'll just share a
and then
screen.
whatever you're comfortable with, really.
All right, I guess I'll start with my first relight.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so here what I would probably do differently is I would choose one focal point instead of two that I have here because I have this really red wall here and it's getting a lot of attention and taking it away from this ticket booth. So like even here it's very prominent. So that's something I would probably change. I would probably just focus more on this and make this a bit more subdued and fix this fog here.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to look at some older pieces and then kind of
Yeah.
think about the placement of the light, how many lights, and kind of passing on the knowledge. Like how would you do it better now?
And also here, I can see there's like this emissive thing here. It doesn't really make sense that the light is around, like glowing around it, because the light source would logically just go forward. So that's something I would also tweak, make it look more natural. Because that's something that I see sometimes is when you have a light and it's, sometimes you like set up the angles in such a way that it looks as if it's like shining through the light source and it looks very unnatural. So that's something I would not use point lights here anymore. I would just use maybe a spotlight if at all,
It's
and
a
not do that.
common mistake I've seen
Yeah,
in this level that
yeah,
people do. Cool.
yeah. And it's a you just need to like stop for a second and think, and then. But yeah, that's something I would change. Let's go to the next one. For this one, I kept it quite simple. Just sunsetty, sun color. Just one light here, one light there. I would probably tweak the colors of the lamp here. Maybe not make it so white.
Right.
But in overall, I think this scene I wouldn't change much because it's already very bare bones. Maybe I would make the light not so bright.
So how come you chose, like, how did you end up choosing the color you chose, and how come you just went with the white, yellow type of color palette?
Ah, I think I had some reference for this one that I liked. In general, I wanted to go for some, just a warm a warm sunset vibe. Because most of these relights were very sci-fi that I've seen at the time. So I wanted to do something a little bit more different, where the natural light is more prominent than the artificial light. Uh, I think I chose to have some neutral colors simply because I didn't want this to be the main focal point. Because it's easy to, make it red or maybe something else, more cold, and then it would already take too much attention, I think. I just wanted to focus more on the mood itself rather than just artificial light. But it's been a long time since I've done it, 3 years ago, so I
Yeah,
don't quite remember the exact process. But yeah,
that's quite a long time since you did that. That's for sure.
yeah. In general, that's the thing with my portfolio. I did all this stuff before I started working, and then once I started working on Cyberpunk, I was so busy that I didn't really do any lighting outside of work, which I probably should do again now that Unreal 5 is out for testing.
It's interesting to see because I've lit this scene. I've lit both scenes myself as well, and it's quite interesting to see how you made your decisions and how you picked it. It's cool.
Yeah, also here I used a bit more like a neutral light. I think because it's a bit more grounded in reality. I've seen some very saturated versions of this, and I think it's all very subjective. But I always like the more filmic look that these scenes have. So I tried to go for a bit more of a neutral lighting setup. And this is also what I mean with shot like contrast. Because if I would light this wall here, this staircase would completely vanish. You wouldn't see what it is. So and also here, the light's just pouring in from this like outdoor area, and I don't need to have an extra artificial light here because it would just create a flat sort of wall together with the entrance there.
It's good. It's definitely
very simple scenes. This one, I mean, yeah, I faked a couple of lights here and there, but nothing crazy.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Yeah, this one I would probably redo. It's a very tricky scene. I would definitely redo the colors. Go for something different. I don't know what I would do for colors yet, but it's something different than this for sure.
I'm not lit this in yet, actually.
It's tricky, this one. Yeah, I think because there's a lot going on in the environment, but it's also just a corridor. Yeah, you should give it a try. It's a cool one.
Well, actually, I'll show some of the relights I did of the same scene afterwards, just for fun and just to see.
Yeah, and then this was a school project. We only had a couple of days to do this. Again, very simple, natural light pouring in. Also, like this scene was made from scratch. Like everything, I made the materials in Substance Designer. Modeled some stuff really quickly, and yeah. And here, just messing around in Unreal. Just trying to get a realistic lighting setup done in like a day. Here I probably wouldn't change much because it's already very simple, and I always really like the soft light when you bake light in Unreal. Yeah, maybe I would tweak the material a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a really nice. It's very interesting the light studies and how people are approaching it and doing it. That's for sure. It goes a long way to do it and get an idea of the color palette and the choices and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting to see how many people have really these exact scenes, and they're all different.
Yeah, let's have a look then for comparison, so people who are looking can get.
Do you have some comparisons of these? Because I haven't looked at the art station for a long time.
I only have one screen, so I'm just gonna click share, and you guys can see how it looks like for a few seconds. So this is the bunker that you showed. I have two. This is me trying to test the different different. This has been doing it in DaVinci Resolve because I was doing an updated version. It says a year, but it's actually 3 years ago for me too. Just delete and upload again when I do some changes. This was the original, which was kind of more darker detective kind of feeling to it. And then this one was a bit color corrected and edited version. And I used, I don't know why, but I used, because it's out in space, so I figured I would go for purple. And then this is a like a more subtle version, and this one is a more extreme version of it. And and then I went for a bit more bluish light for this one. So yeah, it's different, completely different than what you had going on.
But I think that's a fun part about being a lighting artist, right? Like you can change the look of the scene so quickly just by changing a few lights here and there.
Yeah, and then it's this one. This one is super boring now that I have a look at it. Was really just trying to play with it. It says 2 years ago, but this was technically 3 years. You can even say version 2. So this was like basic lighting, really, just to get the reflections and everything. And I was playing a lot with the cameras, learning like different camera angles, storytelling with camera. And as you can see, I didn't really use a lot of lighting. It's just 2 lights, and which is doing all the work. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward, and I started looking into optimization and stuff like that at the time too. I do have another version of it. Let's go behind the scenes. You can see all of my lighting that I never keep around anymore. I had a more creative version, which is I preferred a bit more this creative version of doing it. So
I like the green. It's cool.
yeah, I don't know why I was doing it, but I just like to be different when I do my lighting. And this is the same as yours in the sci-fi one, and I went with a very clear, crisp teal, orange type of color palette. One of the main differences I wanted to highlight, I wanted posters around, so I put them. It didn't bake correctly. Now that I look at it afterwards, it's one of the things that I never bothered to fix. But yeah, this is some of the same scenes done differently. The shadows are a little bit odd for that matter as well. But yeah, it's one of the more crispier scenes I have in my portfolio. I can't believe you haven't looked at my portfolio yet. How dare you? I'm just kidding.
No, I looked at your stuff. You did the Joker subway.
Yeah, it
still need
was
to do that subway one. It's a really cool scene.
It was really popular one. It's cool. I mean, it's good fun. But it's just fun to see people do different things, basically. So now we compared a little bit. We talked a little bit the present and the past. So, what do you consider the hardest part of your role?
It's a good question. I think the hardest part is probably dealing with optimization, because in games, sometimes there's some ideas you can't implement simply because it's too heavy. You want to have shadows in every light. You want to have some really soft bounces and everything, but it's just not possible. In most cases. So dealing with that is probably the most tricky thing, I guess. Like just to having to optimize your setup in such a way that it still looks good, but also complies with all the setting, like all the performance requirements. Other than that, I think we had a very busy development cycle and a lot of iteration. So sometimes we would, go to locations multiple times, and yeah, that was a lot sometimes because you would, like, okay, we have to, look at it again. And having this, like, switching from location to location really helped, but still, it was, there's still some locations where I kind of need to take a break from, and then, go back in fresh, take some screenshots, upload it on ArtStation. Because that's also one of the reasons I don't have anything yet on my ArtStation, is because I didn't want to rush it. Because also I'm not planning on leaving CDPR at anytime soon, so I'm like, I don't need to put anything.
That is the right thing to say on live stream.
I love CDPR. Join us. Actually, we have a lighting position open, so
that's cool.
if anyone wants to join.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty okay where I am right now. I'm also not planning on leaving.
Yeah, but see, like, I didn't want to rush putting stuff on my portfolio because it's, after all, it's very important. But because I'm not, planning on leaving, I'm not in a rush. So I'll do it once I'm, once it took some time
Yeah,
to
that's
look
for
at it.
sure. Now, I think optimization is probably one of my strong suits. That's one of my sales point when I am applying for any projects or anything, that I can do pretty good optimization. So um, I'm pretty happy with that. But what I'm not good at is the technical things like materials and stuff. I'm really bad. So I really need to spend a lot of time when I do checking the materials and stuff like that.
I think, yeah, if you have PBR knowledge, it's very helpful because it helps you spot mistakes in the material. And also, like, we, in the engine, we have the overlays, like you can see the fuse, specular, roughness, all that stuff. So if something is wrong, you can easily spot it. And yeah, there's so many like material libraries out there. I think it should be pretty straightforward to check the values if they're, right or wrong. So
Mm.
that's something that but as a lighting artist, actually, that's very important to know because, you could struggle with your light setup and you don't know why, because the materials are wrong. And because if you use, like, let's say a light that's I don't know, like 1000 lumen, but the material is super dark, like, why is my light so weak? There were some moments like that in our engine for sure. Like, yeah.
That makes sense. I was doing a freelance project, and they had a bit some dark albedos and everything, which needed to be a bit fixed, I guess. Which is surprising because they're like senior, like 20 years experience. I was like, so that was funny to see. So, what would you say was the coolest part of your job? What do you think is the most fun when you do lighting?
I think, well, first of all, like, the locations are really cool. It's Cyberpunk. There's a lot of cool, crazy ideas. Lighting neons, lighting some really weird light sources. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of freedom with colors, a lot of freedom with, like, intensities and everything basically when it comes to light setup. But also, I think the most fun is just working in a team, like, like we have here. Uh, Even, when times are really busy, we made tons of jokes, and it was really cool. Like, the teamwork was great actually, and that's what makes it cool. Because, I was working on my portfolio alone for like months and months, and it's fun, but you're not really sharing what you're doing with anyone. You're not really brainstorming anything. So having the team there, it's like doing lighting but multiplayer, basically. And that's
That makes
that's I think,
sense.
yeah, one of the highlights for sure.
Well, you guys know, if you need to brainstorm and you need help with your lighting portfolio, all you have to do is join Lightingbot and join the community, and you get exactly that. So let's look at some of the PCs that we talked a little bit about some of your three PCs. Um, which one of those three would you say was the most challenging to do?
Definitely the one in the city, the one with the statue, because the city is very. Wait, I'll just share it for a second.
Yeah, why not? Do it. Do
Which one is
it.
it?
And people, you guys can ask questions. There's a lot of you watching, so you might as well ask some question. Why are you guys making me do all the work?
Wait, can you see it? Oh no, wait, it's sharing the wrong one, I guess.
As long as you share something, it's okay.
Chrome tab.
The less
Well,
I have to work, the better.
yeah, that's still. Wait, it's still showing the wrong one. Hold
We
on, I'm
can do this.
embarrassing myself
We can do this. We can do this. Maybe some good questions while we figure this out.
here.
Come on, guys. You guys can think about something. Come on.
All right, this should work.
This should work. All right.
Yeah, so, as you can see here, it's a very dense city center, and the challenges with that is, like, you cannot really predict what the player is going to do or what he's going to see, he or she's going to see when they play it. So you have to focus on the main, like, monument. So here the statue is going to be like a center point. So if no matter how you look at it, the statue will sort of like pop out. However, here, in the background, you have these huge buildings with all the windows and everything. But in that case, there's not much you can do about it, and that's something that I think helps a lot, is to realize that sometimes you're not really in control of your composition that much. If you go to a city and you take a picture, there's always going to be something that's not like how you want it, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can like change your angle a little bit, um, but the player is going to walk everywhere, so you cannot predict what he's going to see. So that's a big challenge, I think, for these sort of scenes. Is all you can really do is light the main parts, make sure that it's playable, make sure it's optimized, and try to create a vibe more than a composition, I would say.
So in this piece or any piece or anything you did on, for example, this one or even your personal pieces, how much did you rely on white balance or tint, which is a question we were asked on Twitch, which I'm just adding into this conversation right now.
um I did some post processing in Unreal back when I was doing Unreal stuff, but I didn't really rely on like a set amount of settings. I was just like, I had some reference and I tried to match it a little bit, or just tweak it until it suits my taste, basically. And I think that's you can experiment with these things. It's easy to get stuck on values. Oh, this guy did it like that, so this is right. Well, yeah, but maybe there's another way to do it. So I think it's cool to experiment, and if you like it, that's that's the main point. And then you should share it with people, get some feedback on it.
Are you telling
And
me
then
there's more than one way of doing it?
yeah, we've seen it, right? The bug that scene.
Oh my god, I have been lied to all this time. There's more than one way. No, that's cool. So if you could go back in time, what would you change, or what would you tell yourself to do differently?
I would tell myself to look more at reference.
Look up more reference.
Like, you can never stop looking at reference. And I look at reference, don't get me wrong, I use it, but there's probably moments where I should use it more. But sometimes you're like, you're working on it and you're, do I want to look for reference now? And sometimes it's hard to find good reference. You have to really dig deep, and it's a
And then you
process.
lie to yourself, right? You tell yourself, I don't need it, I'm okay, I know what I'm doing. And then you're like,
Yeah,
4 hours later, this shouldn't take this long.
exactly. And if you would just look at it, you understand what's going on, then problem solved. That's something I would tell myself. Also, not to worry too much about getting into the industry quickly. Just focus on your skills. Just yeah, really just practice, and then apply. But don't really worry about it too much. Just keep working while you're applying. Yeah.
So, how long did it take for you to get into the industry?
I stopped school in like September, and then I started working at CBR mid-March. So like, yeah.
And you were junior for like 8 months, and then you were lighting artist mid,
Yeah.
I think, for afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What I can say here is, though, like, when I joined, I had like zero experience, but after a month of working at CDPR, I was able to work on the E3 demo that we had back in 2019. And that was like a huge experience boost, because it was so, there was a tight deadline. It was very busy, a lot of things to be learned, but it was really, it was intense. So I kind of learned a lot in a very, very compressed amount of time. And I think that really helped.
A lot of people say you learn a lot once you join a studio, right? That you grow a lot.
Totally.
Not so much true for me. Mainly because every time I join a studio or do any outsourcing or freelancing, I'm the only lighting artist. So only way I can learn is through these conversations, or go on Discord and share some of my personal work. That's normally when I learn, like, as a lighting artist. But that's not to say I don't learn a lot of technical things, because I have quite a lot of good technical artists or programmers who kind of go into detail and explain to me. But there's a big difference for me as well, because I work in Unity professionally during the day, and then I work in Unreal on my personal stuff or freelancing. So it gets a bit daunting for me as well, right? I get exhausted because I have to keep up to date on two different technology and pipelines, and I'm like, ugh, this is too much sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I should just go do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that like now, I'm basically just working for the studio, and then once I'm done, I do something else. I sometimes want to start a project, but then you're so tired after work, and you're doing the same thing every day. So I think it's good to take a break and take a step back, and then once inspiration hits, I would do something. But for now, I also like don't want to like force myself to do something, because when you force yourself to do something creative, it rarely works out, to be honest, I think. Wait, did you? I think he left.
Yeah, I got tired. I was like, screw this, I'm out of here. I clicked refresh on the
New
volume.
host.
Neo, surprise! Sorry about that. That was funny. I knew that would happen one day, as I'm multitasking and checking things, and like sooner or later I'm gonna click the wrong window. Yeah. So where were you?
uh where was I actually?
Well,
Yeah, no, about doing personal work after
right.
after work, basically. I think it's good to take a break and not force yourself to do anything creatively, because usually when you force yourself, it will never really work out, and you'll only be frustrated, and then you're stuck in some like you know
Yeah, this zombie mode.
yeah, basically.
Right. So you mentioned two things, which is what I was trying to type in, but instead I left the conversation. You mentioned something about references, and you also mentioned something about inspiration. Inspiration. So let's talk about inspiration. How do you get your inspirations? Because I think, were you into photography or drawing or something?
Yeah, photography. I really like photography. I don't have like favorite photographers. Oddly enough, I like like if I see something cool, then I will like maybe save it somewhere or like it and have some sort of collection. But I also like movies that have a cool, like Blade Runner, of course, like stuff like that. Like these things are very inspiring. Um, yeah, I think for me that's the most inspiring thing for lighting is like photography, and look at movies like and games. Sometimes if you see Red Dead Redemption 2, you're riding through the sunset on your horse, and like, wow, the volumetrics are so cool. That can also be inspiring to do something like that, or try to do something like that. And,
I mean, the fog in Valheim. Have you played Valheim yet?
no, sadly not.
It's a very overall, the graphic is not that good because they purposely made it that kind of graphic, but their lighting and the fog is really good actually. It's really cool. Nice, some nice screenshots. And also, anyone who asked the question, the minute I clicked refresh, I lost all the questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Again.
Again, so references. How do you approach references now? Because you said that's something you would tell yourself to improve upon. Because I'm also still, I mean, a lot of the work people like, I didn't actually look up any references. It was more like a creative workflow. The disadvantage is it takes a long time to do it compared to if you do have references. The stuff I do have references, like I have an old piece I haven't deleted yet, which is with the deers, and there's like deer on a lake. Um, that took me 1 hour to do because I was looking at the painting and I was kind of using that as my source. So, how do you approach references, and what's your workflow for that?
Like I think when we have a scene and we're looking for some sort of like mood, we tend to look for references that have this sort of mood in them, even if it's like completely unrelated in terms of like context of what's going on. So that's something. And then there's what I would say is technical reference. Like if you have a light source, how does the light source behave in real life? Because sometimes, in movies you don't really see it because like depth of field and all that stuff. So that's something I like to look at, is understand how stuff works. Because once you understand it, you can easily replicate it, usually, if you have the tools to do it. Um, and yeah, just have a collection, a mood board or something. We also have concept artists, so that helps for mood as well. And yeah, and then whenever what I also do is like I have some base reference that I use. I go from there, and then whenever I need something else, I'll just look for it on the go, and just go go with the flow basically.
So some people they will like find references for like the color palette, and then they will find references for the type of lighting, and then they will also find like a different reference for whatever other reason. And some people I've met, and also some of my mentors, they will go into Photoshop and then they will color paint over. They do color change the color from a reference because they see something, but it's not the right color. So they're good at Photoshop, so they'll change all of it, and then it looks exactly like the mood they want
Yeah,
with the lighting. Like, do you go to that extent, or do you just keep it simple?
yeah. I sometimes took screenshots into Photoshop and then played with the colors a little bit to see like quickly see what I could get. Technical reference, like you said, for the light sources, I think is important because there's so many light sources. It's hard to know how they behave sometimes. You'd be surprised sometimes even how the light actually is affected by type of neon that you're using. So that's cool to have. And then yeah, color palette is very linked to mood. So if we need something sad or something like maybe something really grim, detective kind of, Seven is a great movie for this. So we'll take a screenshot from that, look at it, and try to analyze the lighting, what makes the mood, what how does it work, and then apply it to our scenes. Yeah, and whenever something is needed, look for more. The
Have
thing is also like,
you no,
yeah,
keep going.
the thing is also like we work together with a lot of people, so the environment team, they have their own ideas. So sometimes your reference might not work with their idea of what they want to do there. So it's very important to keep talking and just brainstorm stuff. So sometimes you use their reference actually.
That's good.
Yeah.
um cool. And do you have the opportunity to learn color scripting?
No,
No, it's pretty
no.
high
Our
level.
our art director is very into color spaces, and he's creating his own LUT and everything. Uh, he's a wizard in that stuff. He's great. I watched him do it, and it's like it's mind blowing. He does it
Yeah.
in Nuke. There's a lot of
Oh
like
wow.
nodes and stuff like that
Yeah, yeah.
going on. Crazy, crazy. But I personally haven't really taken that step yet.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit careful taking too many steps too fast as well. So what would you say? Because we talked about different skills here, not just lighting and side engine. We are talking about, knowing how to find the references, how to organize them, how to edit them. So what would you say of all the things we even haven't talked about yet are most important skills? If you were to list three skills a lighting artist should know to be a great lighting artist, what would that be according to you?
First of all, if you work in a physically accurate engine, PBR is a must-know thing. You need to know how materials are set up. You need to know why materials look the way they look. I think that's really important. Other than that, it helps to have some basic knowledge on 3D modeling. Just how normal maps, things like that, how things work in an engine. I think because it helps debug stuff. If something's wrong, you can easily tell if it's your setup or not. If you have no idea about anything, it's like, yeah, it might take some time. Another important skill to have, I think, and that's not even related to anything technical, but it's just soft skills, talking to people. If you spot a mistake, let someone know about it. Not, don't think like, all right, someone else is going to take care of it. Let's just hide it. No, you have to talk to people. You have to brainstorm ideas and be open for new ideas and critique. If you cannot take any negative feedback, it's going to be tough, especially in a studio, AAA studio, or any studio for that matter. So yeah, I think that is a very important skill.
Cool. That makes sense. Do you have any recommended articles, videos, sources that you think could be helpful for people to get started?
Unfortunately, no, actually.
No.
That might
Okay.
surprise you, but no, you know, sometimes on YouTube, I just find something interesting. I watch it, but I don't really save it. Um, Again, for me, movies are very helpful, and photography. I also, because I like to do photography on my own, I pay more attention to, composition and, shapes and stuff like that. Um, but articles, if I find something interesting, I'll read it. But on top of my head, sadly, have nothing.
Would you say photography is a very useful way of doing everything?
Yeah. I think it helps with analyzing the scene and looking for good light and looking for good shots and how to create a nice composition. And it's fun. It's like it's related to lighting in a way, but it's completely different from sitting at a computer. So it might be a good break actually for some people if they want to practice their lighting, but they don't want to necessarily sit all day behind a screen. That's a good way to do it. uh, Same with painting, fine art. Painting is all about composition and lighting basically.
Hmm. Yeah. That's good. I mean, that makes sense. Photography definitely is useful for a lot of people, I think,
Yeah.
in terms of learning and picking up skills. It's a very common thing I've noticed with among lighting artists, like photography. Is a lot of lighting artists do some kind of photography that they do to kind of take a break from the computer, but still do something fun and relevant.
Yeah.
So, do you do photography like in environment, nature, interior, exterior, landscape, people, micro?
Well, with the pandemic, not so much of that stuff. But like whenever I go outside, I usually take at least one small camera or something. And yeah, depends. Like I like street photography. It's very very challenging though, and you also have to be willing to take a picture of people, and that's sometimes a very tricky thing. Yeah, I also like landscape. Like during winter, I usually go to Austria, in the mountains, and snow landscapes are beautiful. So that's the kind of stuff I like to take. Yeah, and anything that's if there's a cool vibe, a cool moment, just take a picture.
Cool.
You can even take your own references.
Yeah, I mean, if you're good, yeah, you can at least make sure that it's like color corrected, it's white balance, it's kind of how you
Yeah,
want them to be, because that's one of the challenges, right? When you're looking at references online, is the fact that the references are,
altered in some way. Yeah, or
yeah, you don't really know how accurate it is. It was the same when I was doing the lighting for the Joker. It took a lot of time to find the original photo that wasn't color graded and was like behind the scenes kind of photo that showed the subway and the sitting and everything. It showed me the color, that'd be the color, the diffuse color of all the objects and the original color. And that takes a lot of time to find it and kind of use it as the correct base to get the lighting. So the Joker lighting I did was it did require a lot of research to do it. Even then, I didn't get the colors correctly because I found that image that was raw, unedited, like at the end, and I was like, I'm too tired to keep doing this. I'm just gonna leave it. Do you have anything you want to say before we end this interview and stream in a few minutes?
uh,
Do you want to promote yourself? Maybe you're doing something.
right now I'm just working and just taking it easy a little bit. We had a very busy period and just taking it easy. But no, what I want to say is if anyone, because I like to give feedback to people, if anyone wants to, send over some stuff, I'd be happy to take a look
Yep.
and give some feedback or any other questions, always
Yeah.
welcome.
If you have any questions, you have a few minutes now to think about some good questions you can ask Maxime. We will be a little bit on Discord, 10-15 minutes. So you can also join us there. And there is a hangout around 8 o'clock later as well on Discord where we just hang out and talk a little bit. Not a lot of people do it just yet. But I'm just gonna keep doing it until you guys actually show up and participate. Consistency is key, right? So that's kind of important as well. We do have a couple of other interviews coming up as well. And as Maxime said, we do provide feedback sessions live, so you can join our Discord channel, and you can post in the feedback live, where we can do kind of this way. We can go live and we can talk about things and kind of give you feedback in detail, like really good feedback that you wouldn't normally go get at normal Discord channels, because the
Yeah,
normal.
I think live feedback is actually very helpful because you can, if you have to write it down and like, make some annotations on the images, it takes a long time. So it's cool to
Yeah.
do live. I think it's very
Yeah.
efficient.
And if enough people do it, I'll ask Maxime to join one of the live feedback sessions, and if he wants to, he can join, and you guys can get some feedback from him too. Other than that, we have. Let me just see my schedule. The next person we are talking to, because I've already scheduled 3 months ahead, so it's all good. So the next person we're talking to is already on Monday next week. It's Florent Tuno, who is working at Dotnod Entertainment. And he worked on Twin Mirror, that company that's in France. We talked to him a little bit. He's going to focus a little bit on the technical side of the lighting in terms of talking about how important it is. So that's something you guys want to tune into as well. So that's good. Probably should have uploaded that window. Actually, if you give me a few seconds, I'll do it right away. Bam! There we go. About lighting, Unreal Engine 5 and Twin Mirror, Monday, July 12th. There you go. Now you know. No excuse to miss this one. So thank you for watching, and I want to say thank you to Maxime for showing up and letting me borrow his time. And
Thank
yeah.
you for doing this.
No, I really enjoy it. Hopefully you can, hopefully I can attract you to contribute more in the server and stuff. We'll see what I can manage. But for now, this is a good start. So thanks for watching. And people, thanks for tuning in. I see we managed to keep some attention this time as well. So that's good. See you on Discord. And yeah, have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.